Hello Flosstube, it's Lori of Mischievous Stitches. Welcome to my channel. This channel is primarily about cross-stitching, stashing cross-stitch patterns, tips and tricks about cross-stitching, buying cross-stitch items, just all the cross-stitch talk. So if you like cross-stitch, you're at the right channel. Last week when I filmed my last video, I had a few questions and I wanted to go over those, so I've notated them down. I had a question from Marilyn. How did I learn about framing? In my last video, I showed a piece that I framed myself in a standard frame from Hobby Lobby, and it was the Caroline Behringer sampler that I finished earlier in the year. And how I learned to cross stitch is right here on Flosstube. There's a wonderful video from Teresa Kitten Stitcher where she shows you how to pin your stitch items to foam core board, which is how I do mine. There's also another one from the Primitive Stitcher where she shows you how to lace up your patterns if you don't feel, or your pieces, lace them up on foam core if you don't feel, if pinning is not for you. So there's pretty great tutorials out there to help you when you decide to save a little money and frame yourself. So I will link both of those Flosstubers below. I will try to find the specific videos that I'm referring to, and if I can, I will link those. But Teresa Kitten Stitcher and Suzette the Primitive Stitcher are great ones for resources on how to frame your own pieces. Another question was from Nancy, and she wanted to know, she's finishing up a Plum Street Sampler tart pan, and I recently had a finish this year where I finished my piece into a tart. It was called Tomato Tart by Heart and Hand Needle Arts, and I finished it up inside of a tart pan, and the bottom of the pan comes loose because it's actually supposed to be utilized for cooking and not for cross-stitching. But I'd have to say that I don't think I really have a preference one way or the other, because it's going to be sitting flat. So the only time it would ever be noticed that the bottom of it may come out is if someone picks it up and flips it over. So I don't necessarily have a preference as to whether the tart pan bottom pops out or not. Mine actually does come out. It didn't give me any trouble necessarily when I'm finishing it. I would say if you plan on permanently fastening your finished item into the tart pan, like with glue or something, that may be a problem if you use one that pops out at the bottom. So you may want to consider using one that does have a full bottom on it. Siobhan and Susan, in my last video, I also showed what I am working on, and they wanted to know what the beige fabric was that was in my Q-snap frame along with my linen and the piece that I was stitching on. And what those pieces were, ladies, were pieces of felt. So I don't know that everyone uses this. I just know that I picked this up from another stitcher many years ago, and I take pieces of felt. I always have a few pieces of felt that you can pick up felt at Hobby Lobby for less than 50 cents a sheet. And I pick up beige or white or cream, and I cut them into just to little strips. And I put these narrow, maybe what is that? Maybe 1.5 inch, 2 inch strip between my frame piece and the Q-snaps clamp. And it helps to hold the piece a little more firmly in your Q-snap. As you can see with this, see how my clamp just kind of slides because I've used it for a long time. It will help to keep the piece you're working on a little more taut in the Q-snap itself. But the other thing I really like it for is when I do use a Q-snap, and I don't I stitch different ways depending on the piece and my mood. But this piece is about 3 or 4 inches wide. And the reason it is so that when I'm stitching, I stitch left-handed, and I put this piece where I'm going to rest my hand so that my handles, as you can see, if you're holding it, I'm going to be gripping the edge of the Q-snap on top of that felt so that my hand oils are not getting on the fabric. I also think it kind of protects my stitches If you've ever felt inside of a Q-snap, it's ridges. See, hear that? It's little ridges, and it's to help, once again, to keep your fabric taut. But if you have this, a piece of felt in between your piece, the Q-snap, and the clamp, I think it protects your stitches just a little more instead of flattening them when you clamp them together. So that's why I use it. I continue to use it primarily for keeping my fabrics clean. And I'm not 100% sure that it protects, very well protects my stitches, but it protects it enough that I continue to use it. The other question was, Claire asked about the Southern Land piece that is by Al Forrest Embroidery that I showed in my last video. And that piece, Claire, I did get it as a PDF download. I did not get a paper chart. I know that the paper charts are available, but with it coming from Russia, it was something that I did want to purchase. I just went ahead and downloaded it. It was a little cheaper that way. It's instant gratification. So that's the reason I bought it that way. The other was Sally asked about the ladies behind me and what chart this is. Sally, it's not a chart. It is actually the centerfold of, let me read, I think it's Ladies Home Journal. I should have looked before I did the video. Yes, it's Ladies Home Journal, April 1924. So it's called The Bridal Party. And let me see if I can, I don't know if I can get you closer. I can't. I got this at a thrift shop many years ago. Someone had these two pieces framed, and there were other pages from varying years from the Ladies' Home Journals and different McCall's magazine. And I loved those prints. So I have a couple of them here in my stitch room. I have one in the bathroom here in my stitch room. I just really love them. And even though they're not stitching, I think they're a wonderful addition to my walls here in my stitch room. All questions being answered from last week. I'm going to move on into what I've been stitching on this week. I made a push to finish my Needleworker Sampler by Sue Hillis Designs. I started that as a stitch along of June 1st, and with my daughter coming home from California, I did not get as much stitching in June as I anticipated, but I did originally have a plan to start and finish it in June. So I decided to make a push on getting that finished, and I want to show it to you. I'm so happy with it. I really wanted to take it to get it framed, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure I shared it with all of you guys and gals out there in Flosstube world, because I'm in love. I did stitch this on a piece of 28 count Monaco fabric. I wanted something, since I would be adding buttons and charms onto this piece, I wanted it a little more thicker fabric than linen, because over time the weight of the charms, even though they're not really that heavy, didn't want them to distort the threads of the fabric. And I knew that there were going to be several pulled areas there as specialty stitches, and anyway, I just wanted a thicker fabric. So I also love the color. The color is called Tea. And this is my piece. What do you think? I really like it. I've shared before that this piece was actually hanging in my local needlework shop, Counted Stitches, many years ago, and I always admired it and just never purchased the pattern, never bought it. And I bought it maybe last year, year before, and just never started it. But I had so much fun working on this piece. The specialty stitches were extra fun. Love the tomato, the spools, and just take a look at those specialty stitches. This one was supposed to be pulled work, and because I got the Monaco, it wouldn't distort the fabric, even with me pulling it a little hard. It wouldn't distort the fabric as it would with linen. So when I realized that I couldn't get it to distort the holes, I just did them as satin stitches. I did buy the charm pack from Sue Hillis's website for the hearts, the scissors, and the tiny little thimble. Can you see that little thimble? And then the buttons, some of them I had in my button jar, but a couple of them come out of the various needlework boxes that I've bought at thrift shops and antique shops over the past few years. And so I used, this one is from one of those boxes, and one of these on the side is, and the brightest white ones are new ones that were from my own button jar. I love it. I did have another finish. On July 4th weekend, I started a patriotic piece along with Michelle at the Striped Rose. She was stitching on Flag Folk. I picked up Liberty Hill Sampler by Heart and Hand Needle Arts, and I've had that in my stash for some time, and I finished that up as well. It was just a quick little stitch, patriotic flag, patriotic colors, and the addition of a few little triangular, just another button company buttons. Those came in with the kit that I purchased, and I really love this. I have a finishing idea for this. I'm thinking of doing one of the needle books. I'm going to use, Lori Holt recently did a needle book finishing tutorial. I'm going to use that as a guideline and try to come up with something that works for me. And then if you remember earlier in the year, I finished up a Blackbird Designs patriotic piece as a pen pillow, and I used some military buttons and ribbons on there, and I have a few extra because I picked those up as antique shops as well, and I thought those would look really great with Liberty Hill Sampler if I finish up in a needle book, and I can use those as, you know, little odds and ends on the pages of the needle book. So maybe I'll get it done next week, but hopefully within this month I'll have a finish on that, a full finish on that I can share with you as well. So I primarily worked just on the needlework sampler this week. I'm trying to stitch every day. I stitched every day this week, but one day, and that would be Friday. And this would have been Friendship Friday, and I was working on a new piece with Jen of Jen's Stitching Niche. We finished up our Birds of a Feather sampler, and we're both working on Cooper by Kathy Barrick. I have this part, but I don't have but this is Cooper. I can't show you the piece because it's in my whip bag, but maybe I'll pull it out and show it when I show it again next week. So since I did not get a chance to work on Cooper on Friendship Friday, I decided to move Friendship Friday over to Saturday. So I worked on it yesterday morning for a couple hours. And here are the colors for Cooper. I think they're absolutely beautiful. Fall colors with additions of those blues, teals. And I'll show you where I'm at. I didn't get a lot of progress yesterday. I pulled Cooper out with the plan to work on him all day, and then I realized that the piece of fabric that I had started stitching him on was a 40 count, and I believe this is Picture This Plus Wren. And I don't know whether it was 40 count and then they dyed it, and then once it was dry, it shrank a little bit. But this is supposed to be 40 count, and it seems like it's more than 40 count. Since I first started this in 2018, my eyesight has gotten a little, it's not as good as it was 2 years ago. And so I was struggling, even with my glasses on, to stitch on Cooper. And I stitched on him during the day, and I, of course, have my light shining over my stitch work, but I really was stressing my eyes a little bit to see the thread. So I'm going to have to sit differently and use my magnifier to work on this. But I did get the F, the K, the G, and the H complete on Cooper. So I got a little bit of progress. Everything else were things that I had, and I originally started this with Olivia B and Dawn USA, I believe. That's her Instagram handle. We started this in 2018, and I know that Olivia B has finished hers. I do not know about Dawn, but I look forward to finishing him up. And he's going to be relatively small. Let's see. On 40 count, he's 4 3/8 by 7.5. So this is as wide as Cooper will be. So that's 4 3/8. This should be 4 3/8. And then he'll be close to twice that long. So I'm not gonna need all this fabric, so I can do a little small on it later. On the bottom half, so I'm gonna put this one away. And someone did ask me too about my bags. I don't know whether at some point in a video I mentioned that I would show my bags, or maybe I said something that was misunderstood. So I'm just going to show you my bag that Cooper is in. This is actually a zipper pouch that I made using a Pioneer Woman placemat. And it was on a video here on YouTube by Lori Nuneker. And I have also shown in a past video, it was a makeup bag that you can make from those placemats as well. But this is, once again, a Pioneer Woman placemat from Walmart. And I just sewed it up and put a zipper on it. And I'm using it as a project pouch or project bag. Also this week, each week this month, I will be working on Christmas in July SAL on Instagram. This is a stitch along with, or in honor of Diana Is Kismet stitches. This is her birthday month. This is another piece that I started in 2018. And these are the colors. It is a Prairie Schooler sampler. And this is Christmas Eve. Now, as you can see in here, the fabric on the cover looks a little light. And I do believe this is a natural colored linen that they are calling for, Sage Jobelin. And it's a little darker than what it's showing in the picture. But I like the look of this, so I decided to go with a lighter color fabric. So I originally purchased 32 count lamb's wool linen. And at the time, can you tell from back there that I stitched with one thread? And I really do want y'all's opinions on this, but hear me out first. And if you have any tips or any advice, just leave it below. But I stitched with one thread. It's 32 count. I'm okay if things don't completely cover with one thread. That doesn't bother me so much. But when you put it up close, especially in the sled, because it's stitched with 3371, I believe, it's like a shadow of the linen behind it. So I've been working on this a little in 18, a little in 19, and I wanted to finish it up this year since I'm focusing on my whips. And I just wasn't enjoying it. So flashing back to my last video, I shared with you a piece that I was to be starting with my friend Tiffany Kahn on a piece of Wheat Style Work parchment, which is a little darker fabric. But it was real loosey-goosey, the fabric weave. And I wasn't enjoying stitching on it. So I decided to work a little bit of Christmas Eve on it. This is 2 strands over 2 on 32. But see that loosey-goosiness? But this is the Wheat Style Works. So I didn't get as much work on this piece as I would have liked. Let me break a rule and fold this with my stitching to the outside, but I have a reason. I do have a lot stitched on this, but as you can see, the white's not showing up that very well. There will be words inside the white snow. If you look, I don't know how well you can see it here on Flosstube, but the words are going to be in that same yellow beige, I believe it's 738 in the snow. And I know I could change the color of that. There's nothing wrong with changing a color. I do like it on this color, but I really just like this fabric. This is 32 count weak style where it's parchment. This is 32 count lamb's wool. I'm just really indecisive if I want to keep going, if I want to move it over here. I even this week ordered a piece of sage Jobelan that is suggested in the Christmas Eve chart. I'm just not knowing what I want to do with this. So any advice? Have you stitched it? Do you enjoy the 32 count with 1/1? Would the shadow of the white linen beneath bother you? I don't know what kind of answers I'm really looking for. I'm just at a crossroads of whether I want to stop on this right now and start it a third time on something else or not. I just don't know. So I don't know that I'll pick this back up this week until I get that fabric in. I do want to throw it up against the sage Jobelan. I'm just, like I said, I'm just at a crossroads on this piece. Not sure what I'm going to do. And this one is in a Lisa Kindred Stitcher bag that I snagged off of her Instagram page late last year. I love this fabric. I think it's so cheerful, happy it's Christmas, and has the most amazing little zipper pull. So there's that. And then I got the fabric in this week for my stitch along with my friend Tiffany. This is Dreaming of Daisies by Rosewood Manor. I haven't started it yet. I just got the fabric in Friday. I think it was Friday. Oh, wow. I haven't pulled it. Hold on just a second. I hadn't pulled it out of the pouch. Well, where did I put it? Oh, my goodness. Well, it's here somewhere. This is a different piece. This is a piece that I ordered this week from Luminous Fiber Arts, and it's just a piece of Zweigert. It's a fat half of a color called Nougat, and I love it. I'm not really sure what I want to stitch on this. I have a little bit of an idea, but I don't know order on the pattern yet. But I really, really love this color. So this is a site that's run by Misty Purcell here on Flosstube, and this is Luminous Fiber Arts. So she has a Flosstube as well if you want to check her out. But I do have a piece so that I can start this with my friend Tiffany again for the second time. And I hope I can lay my hands on that fabric, because I don't know. The parchment that was in with the Prairie Schooler Christmas Eve that I just showed you, that parchment was originally what I had for this, and I removed all those stitches that I had already stitched because I didn't like the way they were looking. They were very uneven, just my threads weren't laying right, and I have to stitch with two, and I've gotten so used to stitching with one. That's, to me, is just such a pleasure. But I know that on that particular piece, stitching with two threads is just really going to make it pop and give it a lot of pizzazz. So I want to go that way. I also have my little Mary Cotton from Lottie Da. Didn't touch it at all this week. And the third one, I did make a start yesterday. Since I'm at a crossroad with Christmas Eve, and I can't see Cooper, and I just really had a whole day, not a whole day, a good bit of a day that I wanted to stitch and wanted to spend my time stitching, I pulled out a new start. And where did I? Oh, it's in here. This is the one that when I answered the questions earlier, this is Al Forest Embroidery. This is Southern Land. I was inspired to stitch this by X Stitch MD Shiloh. She has a floss tube as well as an Instagram page. And when she showed this on Instagram, you know, she showed her progress, and then she showed a picture of the pattern. And I immediately went to purchase it and downloaded it. And this is being stitched on a piece of 32 count Jobelan in lamb's wool. And this is where I got yesterday. So the pattern only has 4 colors. I just really went to town. I am enjoying this. I can see it. It's 32 count. I can see it well. I love it. It's only a couple of colors. It is stitching with 2 threads, but it's worth it. Everything is just, I really enjoyed it. So I really wanted to finish this corner last night, which I did, and I wanted to get to the part where I was changing to another color, which I did. So I met my goals. So tonight, I'm not sure what I'm going to work on. I'm thinking it's going to be this one again. I'll either pick up this one or at least put in a thread or 2 in Cooper until my eyes protest, and then I'm going to pick up this with 32. But that'll be later in the day. And let me show you these threads up against this Jobelin. See, there's only 4. You can see how much of that I've already used. That was a skein. I bought 3 skeins of each color, I believe, so that I could get through the pattern. I'm not sure if that'll be enough because, as you can see, I've done 1 corner and I'm almost, I mean, I probably used half of that, and there's a good bit of that dark blue in this pattern. But I'll let you all know in case, and there was a question on Instagram yesterday about the colors. Let's see, that is the size. So the size, stitched on 32 count, it's going to be, oh, it's got it in centimeters. So I'm not going to read you that. It lists Al Forest embroidery threads. So they must have their own thread line. It lists DMC as well. So I'm going to show you that. I'm going to kind of cover up the pattern. And for those that asked, those are the DMC colors. That is what I'm using. And I can't wait to show you more progress this week. So I know I'm going to be working on this week. And I still, did I show you I don't think I showed you the colors up against the fabric. I really like the look from the pattern cover with that beigey fabric. I think I've got it pretty much spot on. So I'm loving the fabric color with these threads. Simple and easy piece. And I also, this week, I got this, my friend Karen AZ on Instagram. She had a couple of fobs she had made on sale, and this is a patriotic one. There you've got dear old George. Yankee Doodle Dandy. Speaking of Yankee Doodle Dandy, my son-in-law came home last night. My daughter is overjoyed. They popped out to go visit some of his relatives today. They'll be back a little later for dinner, and I'm so happy to have him home. And he is just, you can see the relief and the happiness on his face from even being here. But the first thing he said is that humidity's killer. He grew up here. But he's been away for 4 years, so he's not used to our summers anymore. Today, with the humidity, the heat index, it is to be 106. So it's pretty scorching out there right now. So if you walk outside, you're immediately going to sweat. That moisture in the air just sucks you right in. It's thick like molasses out there. This week, I'm going to continue to work on Sutherland. I'm going to put in several threads in Cooper. I plan to make a decision about Christmas Eve and work on that because I decided that's going to be a finish this year, but I also want to stitch along on it this month because I love Diana and she's a friend. And I want to work towards FFOing Liberty Hill Sampler. So until next week, everyone stay safe, wear that mask, get some stitching done, and hugs and stitches. Bye-bye.